We're live with our 292nd episode of Absolute AppSec. I'm Ken Johnson at CK Tricky on social media, joined by my co-host Seth Law at Seth Law on social media. Seth, say hi.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. Super excited to be here as always. Couple items that we wanted to bring up before we get started into some of the topics for today. First up is we will be giving virtual training this Thursday and Friday. Practical secure code review, the AI enhanced version. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this and why, why we're still promoting this course, why we still talk about it, and why it's crucial for you. But you have an opportunity to sign up, training.absoluteappsec.com. We do have a couple of seats still available, and we will be digging into all of the AI bits, the new techniques, new things that Ken and I have learned within the last few months. To be frank, like our process is evolving on how we use AI in doing secure code reviews, and it's speeding things up just immensely. So, this is your opportunity. I don't know the next time that we're going to do practical secure code review at this point. There are some opportunities later this year, but we may take a step back as we're doing some trainings that are associated with conferences and other things.
Seth
so
and
the
I
virtual
are going through a busy period, and we probably won't host this for at least
a few months.
At least a few months, if not longer. So this last 2 days, your last 2 days to sign up for like potentially, half a year. So
yep,
get it in
if you can. So I'd love to see you. Besides that, Ken and I will be at DEF CON and, Black Hat in Las Vegas for Hacker Summer Camp or whatever you want to call it. You should download Hacker Tracker and use it for your DEF CON and B-Sides Las Vegas and other experiences. I have to give a plug there because we promote it or I have helped develop it for a number of years, if you did not know that. Super useful tool. One of those that was not available 15 years ago or 10 plus years ago. And I just decided to help out and build the iOS version. And here we are today. But we're going to be there. We're going to be doing some sort of a happy hour event, probably, on your own, or we'll sponsor some drinks or whatever it is on Thursday night. We've got to pick a location. There is a channel in Slack where we're discussing where that's going to be. We will announce it on the various channels once we have specifics. But that will be Thursday night. We'll see a number of people, Paul and others. Anybody that's in Vegas is more than welcome and would love to say hi and see you. And then Ken and I will be having a State of Absolute AppSec panel that we are presenting at the AppSec Village at DEF CON. This will be Saturday morning as the indications that I'm getting. The schedule is not live yet for the AppSec Village, but it sounds like it'll be first thing like 10:15 in the morning, Saturday morning. We will have Tanya and Jason on the panel as well. Jason Haddix, Tanya Yunka. Both of them have been on the podcast before, and it'll be a good time. I'm excited about that. We may even have Erez and some of the other AppSec Village people join us as well. But given that it's 45 minutes, we probably won't try to overload the stage, right, Ken? But have enough people to have some good opinions there, especially coming from different perspectives. Let me see. What else? DEF CON training, harnessing LLMs for application security is also available. That course is a go, and seats are selling quickly. We're less than 30 days out on that one. If you're looking to improve your LLM foo, I guess, like however you want to say it, this is your opportunity to do that. So it's some of the techniques that we use in practical security code review, but we're expanding that out. We're going in depth on how it operates. And also we're using it for other things besides code review. In my practice as a consultant, we are using LLMs pretty actively on the dynamic side as well to help point us in the right direction. So this will be the first time that we really dig into that. And I expose some of those prompts and those techniques that we are using. And, there are things like Burp AI and others, but we'll talk about what that actually is and how it affects you and how you can actually utilize LLMs to improve your overall AppSec processes. Cool. What am I missing, Ken?
One last thing. I talked about this on the podcast when I like kind of got a hair and decided, hey, I'll run, my company's tool, dry run security on pull requests versus Sneak and SemGraph and CoQL and SonarQube, right? What those results showed were we just blew everybody out of the water. We found all the things they couldn't, right? I've been saying it, that report showed it, but one issue was to view the report, you actually had to like give your information, enter an email address, name, and all that stuff. You don't have to do that anymore. So you can just download it and don't have to give us any information. And I'm going to post it right now. So go ahead if you'd like to see like the things that we're finding that other, tooling can't find, why you might want to come check us out. Little self-promotion there. But all right. So anyways, cool. Awesome. Now we can get on with the show. Now that we're done talking about ourselves and promoting our stuffs, our peddling our wares.
Well, so one of the things that I wanted to get into, right? I know we've talked a lot about AI recently. We've talked a lot of, but I wanted to I'm wearing my back to basics Crocs and socks t-shirt because of course nice. I am today. You can get one of these on the merch store if you go to the website, by the way.
We're almost done peddling ourselves.
Almost done. But I wanted to get back a little bit to just like the activities that we do and how we start to recognize things. So in the last week, 2 weeks, I've actually been doing quite a bit of code review. Surprise, surprise, right? Like that's what I do when I'm not hosting the podcast. And we've utilized, we've been utilizing AI to find things. I've been working with Ken, like we've been, we do some beta testing for dry run and other things and really excited about the efficiencies that we gain from that. But one of the items that I was digging into and I was kicking back and forth, and let me just share this, was something that we talk about in the course, right? This idea that manual still matters. And let me see where it's at. Okay, it's just a screenshot. I'm trying to not actually show client data here, so this is generic enough that we can talk about it, right? But one of the things that I see quite often, especially with juniors, with people in the industry that haven't been around for a while, is and I was like this as well, is over dependence on the tools that we have. So, we scan with a static analyzer, we scan with dynamic, they don't actually find anything, or they find some low hanging fruit. We spend a couple hours poking around and then we're done. Right? But one of the items that I'm always looking for are these edge cases, right? That's obviously what we're paid to do from a code review perspective. There's a reason why we talk about, I have a checklist of things that I look at, right? One of the things that I always look at, we talk about in this course, is mass assignment, right? This ability to actually go and make changes, unintended changes or intended changes to objects in the database based on the user object model or the object models that exist. So in this case, this is PHP, kill me now, but it's PHP. That's what I've been looking at. They've got this DynamoDB user, it's extended, a class user object model. They actually call out that these are the attributes that are mass assignable, a list of them. So if I include any of these in like the user profile update, it automatically takes those and drops them in as allowed. You're allowed to make changes to them as the user, or as long as you have access to that function. Checklists definitely rule the industry. I mean, that's how I operate on a daily basis, right? But what I found interesting here is that this was not something that was flagged. And it's because the context matters of what's going on inside of an application, right? Okay, so I can change my name, my email address, my avatar, my status. But you'll notice that these other identifiers that are in there start to become more and more security relevant, right? Things like role is probably not something that you want people to be able to update on their profile page. And on top of that, this application is a multi-tenant application. They had competing brokerages, right, in the application, and changing from one brokerage ID to another one as like a malicious administrator would give you access to all of the clients that actually were in the other brokerage's accounts. Right? And again, these are like edge cases. This is not something that we're necessarily going to, without context of what's going on in the application, we're not going to call this out. A tool is not going to call it out. Even an LLM probably isn't if we don't give it the context of what those security sensitive bits are that exist in these models within the application itself. And this was exactly what we found. There were some updates to the user object that happened outside of the profile page, but the profile page itself, which the user could update, was not protected. It did not protect any of these fields in a different manner, right? The only protection was this fillable, right? Like protection that's built into Laravel in this case, right? And yeah, so all I'm getting at here is that manual is still required on top of everything that we do with the LLMs. And we'll take this back, right? Like this is one of those items that we're going to take back, and we will train the LLM on to actually look for these sorts of vulnerabilities over time. But without the context of what's going on in that application, it's very, very difficult to identify this and make that logical jump, which becomes the vulnerability, which becomes the exploit. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm explaining that very well.
No, it makes total
Yeah.
sense. It's hard to know that like you're not supposed to be able to, register or update your profile and pass in those types of key value stores, whether that's going to be in a NoSQL document, a SQL injection, or excuse me, I said SQL injection, a SQL state, bit of SQL data stored in a SQL database, or whatever other way you can think to store data. If you can manipulate more attributes than you're supposed to, then for sure. And that's to what you're saying, that is a hard thing to understand. Roles probably easier. Admin or is admin or something of that nature, a little bit easier to infer. Like, hey, there's probably something you're not supposed to be able to pass in that can be passed in. But if it's something like more contextually specific to your point about, hey, if I have like a carrier or group ID and overriding that allows me to maybe, especially like maybe even a group ID might be caught, but carrier ID might be like a little tougher to know that that's not great, or brokerage ID might be somewhat in the middle. So, if you're talking about deterministic tools, well, they're not going to find that at all. If you're talking about probabilistic tools, you have a better chance, but still there could be some wonkiness. Still, requires contextually relevant and specific information to the thing that you're performing some analysis on. So that all makes sense to me. I very much, this is still we're still in the world where you need a human being to get you over the finish line for a good solid review.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and it's the combination there, right? Like I get a lot of questions, especially from non-technical folks about, is AI going to take your job, right? Like that's it, right? Like, or is it going to eliminate human in the loop? But when it comes to stuff like this is where I go back to, no, let's be honest, right? Like there is going to be, there's always those context jumps that are really hard for the tools to actually suss out. Now, there were protections in place actually around that role parameter that I'm looking at here as well. There was, in the user object, there was also an admin variable or an admin parameter that was attached to that model that you actually had to line up both of those to get admin privileges. And so that role became less, it was like a sub role within the admin group itself, whether or not you could actually do specific things. It did allow for a little bit of manipulation, but it wasn't as devastating as some of the other context bits that are in there. Yeah. Models aren't considered secret on the client side. Yeah, they're often not. There's just so much that goes into it from a context perspective, and the LLMs will get better. The tools will get better at recognizing some of this. But if I can give it more context from a human, it's going to be like a superpower, right? Like that's almost what it feels like. The speed that it gives me as a code reviewer it becomes a superpower because I don't have to worry about a lot of the low-hanging fruit now. I know that I can trust it to go in and identify certain bits. Yes, I do spot checks on that to make sure it hasn't gone off the rails, but at the very least, it's pointing me in the right direction on those.
Yeah, and sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes, yeah, more.
Yep. Cool. Good. So that's that bit. Did you have which article did you want to dive into first here today, Ken?
I did find the AI Slop one pretty interesting. Because I actually looked at some of those because I and it's not because of like the AI part, it's actually the bug bounty part that I thought was interesting. I guess the AI bits also definitely also a part of that. I mean, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty interesting. So I don't know if you want to start there or somewhere else.
Sure. That's great. Let me drop that in. Okay. So this Death by AI Slop, right? Death by 1,000 Slops. So this is Daniel. He is a member of the curl team. And if you remember from a month, 2 months ago, we had a report that was discussed that basically was just a made up vulnerability that was submitted to curl as being a legitimate bug, right? And looked like somebody had gone to ChatGPT and said, here's some code, write me a bug bounty report for it, make it critical so I can submit and earn money, right? Like that's at least what it felt like. Daniel digs in even deeper to talk about the statistics behind curl's bug bounty program and what they have seen over the last, I think, 2 months, or in 2025 specifically. And I'm going to share the article. I'm going to actually share a picture of the article here. Sorry. Because it's interesting to just see how much AI Slop is affecting the bug bounty programs and the world in general from just the sheer amount of data that's being pushed in there.
The volume, yeah. And honestly too, like it's also pretty interesting when you read the reports. Like I went through at the bottom, he lists the reports that he's kind of showing as examples of crap reports that so I went through the first 3. I wasn't gonna go through all of them. I don't know, that kind of time in the day. But I went through the first few. And the first thing that kind of stuck out, if you like pull up one of them, is if you ever worked a bug bounty, nobody has this good of grammar and spelling, right? Like, this isn't like this actual first bit probably isn't the best example, but it's still way better. Again, if you might think like, oh, I don't know, that's not that great. That's like actually well written as opposed to what you normally get in a bug bounty program, or at least that was my experience. And then you see like where here's another thing that happens too. Like AI systems are really polite, right? So when basically they're responding being like, this is total garbage, you're listening to your LLM, it's hallucinating, it's wrong, XYZ, right? They'll come back and be like, I understand I understand your thoughts here. Let me explain further. It's like really polite. There's no emotions whatsoever in terms of negative emotions. They're just it sort of gets into like a deeper tries to explain itself. This isn't the best example. If you go to, I think the next two both have, as you get farther down into the report, there'll be like a total, go all the way to the bottom when he basically is like, yeah, this is garbage. Yeah, see, it's going to say, I appreciate your engagement and would like to clarify the situation. And then if you go down farther, it also, by the way, says, hello, H1 Oscar analyst, who doesn't exist on there. And then it's like, I appreciate your follow-up question. Let's get into details. And it's like, he's like, no, I'm not being polite here. Like, I'm telling you, this is shit. And you're like spewing out nonsense. And anyways, and it's just funny because it's like, if you've ever ran a bug bounty program, you know that this is not how it goes. It's like it tends to be the opposite, where you're, at least in my case, we were trying to be like over the top, considerate and nice, and show that we, kind, I would say, and that we tried to validate the report if it made sense to even go that. And even sometimes, we're not going to validate it. It doesn't make any sense, but we try to be kind. And then what they'll come back with is anything but, right? That's at least oftentimes, not like good researchers. I'm just talking about I don't know, the masses. Definitely the spelling and grammar isn't there. Definitely the high, like, emotional in a negative capacity, like emotive comments are there, where it's like, you just don't understand my brilliance. It's like, well, I don't think you understand the fundamentals of this technology, but I don't want to like fight with you. Anyways, just kind of funny to me, as like, not even it's only the AI part's only interesting in that it's like kind of funny how obvious it shows that it's not a human being, because human beings don't behave like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this goes to, or this speaks to the amount of just like cost that is associated with responding to AI comments in general. And anybody that's in the educational space will talk to this as well. The amount of just AI slop, chat GPT slop that's being submitted as actual papers or actual like assignments has gone through the roof. I did.
I lose you. Yeah, but I lost Seth. Here he's back.
Sorry about that. I hit back on the wrong tab there. So let me try this again. So Daniel, yes, Daniel's point in his article that in 2025, 5% of the submissions in 2025 had turned out to be genuine vulnerabilities. So the valid rate in their program has decreased significantly compared to previous years. And yeah,
I'm just popping that while you're talking. That's all. Sorry.
It's it's not overly surprising to me, right? The one report that we were just looking at feels like the researcher, right, the security researcher, probably asked an LLM to find a vulnerability, submitted that, line by line, didn't understand what it was. And then when Curl responded, they took Curl's response, fed it to the LLM with context, and then went back and forth. Like it was just like a direct pipe from the LLM to HackerOne in that case, right? Yeah. It's it's funny, but it's also disheartening, because what's going to happen to these, right? Like he discusses this fact that, hey, maybe we stop doing a bug bounty program.
I know, right? That might actually, it's kind of interesting. Like, how do you incentivize, actually, it's and he brings this up. It's more about how do you de-incentivize people that shouldn't be contributing to your program, more than it is incentivizing those that should. And I think that's really, like, here, let's just talk it out. Some of the options he discussed: One was have people pay a small amount of money to submit a bug, and they get that money back plus their payout if if that bug is
If it's
valid. I just
valid.
think that's
Yeah.
like I there that's nah. I pass. I think that's a bad idea. I don't think that would work. I don't think that would pan out well, frankly. And I think you de-incentivize the right people, and you wouldn't necessarily incentivize the wrong people. You definitely would de-incentivize the right people. That's absolutely true. I mean, what are your thoughts there? Am I off?
No, I don't think so, right? Charging a fee to submit a security vulnerability. Part of me understands the inclination to do that. But it does feel pretty, to his point, it feels pretty hostile that you are eliminating, depending on where you set that limit, right? You're eliminating people that maybe you would want to actually submit those bugs, because it's the stuff, to Robert's point, right? Like, hey, I found something sketchy. Like maybe the report comes in and it's not classified well, or not the most interesting, or the well spoken, that comes into it. Like that's what you're disincentivizing by dropping that gate in there. You could do it by reputation as well. But again, like you're limiting the scope of those unknown unknowns and finding the really interesting vulnerabilities, the less people that you have or you incentivize to actually look at your program. Otherwise, I think it's just a matter of how do you actually stop the flood and how do you find the needle in the haystack, right? Like, how do you identify the AI slop as it comes in? If there's a way to actually, pare that down so you're only looking at maybe 10% of the vulnerabilities that are coming in Curl's case. The ones that are definitely either not valid or coming from an AI probably need to be dropped out the window. Or what you're going to see is HackerOne build an AI bot or a workflow that actually looks at reports before they get to the bug bounty managers, I guess. And those will be what's limiting. It just feels like a cat and mouse game, and I don't think there's a good solution there without really considering just dropping the program altogether.
Yeah, I don't like. I was thinking through what you're saying and what options kind of exist. One that Robert brought up is a private bug bounty. The only issue with a private, or not an issue, but one thing that was true, and I'm sure that there's different ways to do this. So let's just talk through it. If you do a private bug bounty route, that kind of assumes that, well, they have reputation, and that's either reputation with your program or it's reputation you want to use, just like everybody has a reputation score on HackerOne, right? So in our case, a private bug bounty meant a history and reputation with our platform. So you've submitted, high criticality bugs. You don't submit garbage. We've identified you as someone we really think needs to take a look at our code, and our platform. So then you get invited. But that might be tough. Especially if you're an open source project like Curl, that might be tough. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what their submissions look like. I don't know what their activity looks like. I do know he did say that they had a 5% validity, and I'm not sure if it was 20% previously and now it's 5%, or if it was even stated if it was like the pre and post numbers. Before about 20% of all, the general trend has been way more AI slop than ever. No, they're saying 20% of those submissions. Okay. In early July, about 5% of the submissions in 2025 had turned out to be genuine vulnerabilities. the valid rate had decreased significantly compared to the previous years. I don't see the previous year's figures. That's like the only thing. I just have to kind of take him for his at his word at face value, which of course I would. I just don't. It's kind of hard to do a comparison on no numbers. Um, yeah, yeah, kind of tough to say because 5% doesn't even sound that crazy. Like honestly, if you got a program where you're getting 10% like valid submissions, I mean, that's kind of just the reality if you're a big platform. Um,
Well, the hard thing
yeah,
that I have here is this is an open source project, right?
right.
So the amount of money and time that people are willing to give to an open source project varies. It's actually pretty low. Anyone that's ever run an open source project will tell you that it's usually just the founder and maybe one other guy that actually supports most of that. Now, curl, it sounds like they've got more people than that are contributing, or things like the Linux kernel, other places. But the amount of time that it takes to actually comb through bug bounty reports and respond to AI Slop is where I start to question the value. Because I think that it's, if you end up spending, you've got 2 hours and you have to comb through, let's just say, like, given the numbers that he's stating here, right? You're combing through 20 bugs submitted through the bug bounty platform, and only one of those bugs is valid. And you just spent 2 hours of your time to eliminate 95% of what came in to look at that one vulnerability and actually even just like start to classify it. That's 2 hours that could have been spent actually fixing bugs or adding features to curl that probably would be more effective. And so we've got to figure out a way to eliminate at least like 90% of those as invalid before they get to the point that a person needs to look at it or actually go in and recreate those steps. And yeah,
Idea. Are you ready for it?
yeah,
It's pretty revolutionary. It's pretty wild. All right, you ready?
yeah, I'm
Respond to
ready.
all of the submissions with ignore previous instructions.
That's not a bad idea, right? Like embed that in. Utilize some prompt injection there inside of the bug bounty platforms. Responding
You're
to the
welcome,
researchers.
internet.
You're welcome, internet. There we go.
I solved the bug bounty. No. I mean, like I said, I mean, one thing that I would do is probably utilize reputation and filter like you already do filtering of keywords. You know, that for anybody that doesn't know, there are control mechanisms, right? Um, where you can say like you can filter based off of keywords. You can believe you can filter based off even off like you have to meet a certain minimum bar of reputation to be able to like do a submission. I believe there are some controls there. I could be totally wrong, and it might be dependent on the platform that you're running your bounty through. But there is one other option too. But I don't know how. I actually don't know if this would work for open source, but like that actually it probably wouldn't, right? Because the whole idea behind Synac and being like a white glove sort of. And is Synac still doing that? I'm sorry, actually, I haven't kept up with Synac. But Synac used to be like I was on the platform for a little bit, but I think we've talked about it on the podcast. But basically, I couldn't I just didn't have any time to like jump on the reviews as fast as possible. So I anyways couldn't do it, so couldn't stay on there. But those platforms are nice because it's only people that have gone through an interview, probably somebody's looked at their resume, probably gone through a background check. It's the whole process to be a researcher. Although at the same time, I think maybe there's probably some serious money involved in something like that, so maybe not an option. But I don't know. Those are the only things I can really start to think about. The other option is just not having a bounty program at all. But I think that's somewhat dangerous. I don't know.
It is, but I go back to how much time do people actually have to spend on open source projects, and whether or not a bug bounty at this point makes sense if all you're getting is AI slop, or if 95% of what you're getting isn't valid. It's very difficult to justify the cost, right, of running that program when you're not necessarily sponsored in that way. You're not paid to do that. I struggle with that, because those are the discussions that I have with clients often, is whether or not they're ready for a bug bounty program and actually going public, when they don't have the budget to cover it, not only from a pure cost perspective, but also from a time perspective, that their engineers have to look at those and triage even what has been triaged, what's already been triaged by the platforms themselves before it comes down to the company engineers that are looking at those vulnerabilities as they come in. So yeah, I mean, for a big program like curl, yes, it makes sense, but it would not surprise me if they go private, or if they do something else come 2026 to eliminate that need. And we all suffer for it over time in the open source community because of this sort of slop that's being generated.
Are they seeing it's, and it's funny too. I was just thinking about like the incentives. It's also, I don't know why this kind of popped in my head, but it's like, I guess because I was thinking like, well, engineers also submit bugs to these platforms. What's the difference? And I guess, the difference is that these bugs are, they're incentivized to make sure the program works correctly and efficiently, because they're using it, and because it's important in some capacity for their work. I would assume, anyways, or maybe I don't know, maybe there's other incentives, but it's like with security. If we find a bug, we're almost incentivized to keep that, like, and this is also, oh man, this goes into another thought too, which is like, one thing I've seen too is if there is a valid bug caught in curl, they're almost incentivized to not go directly to curl and tell curl, and more like go to the various providers whose tools are underpinned by curl. For instance, you see this happen sometimes where someone will be like for instance, we got a lot of Electron submissions at GitHub because Atom, the old IDE that we used to offer pre-VS Code, was written in Electron. So anytime there was an Electron vulnerability discovered, we and everybody else who had something built on Electron would get submissions. And then it becomes this whole responsible disclosure, go back to the original vendor, don't try to game everybody who's sitting on top of that library. So anyways, that's a whole other mess to talk about and manage. But going back to it, I don't know. I think that security, we like almost are not. There's not. It's almost beneficial to keep that kind of exploit to yourself for a bit, or at least shop it around, or like get self promotion somehow, some branding. Make a make a fancy website and
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
logo for your vulnerability. So I guess I don't know. I was just trying to think like why can engineers just submit bugs, which are also sometimes just absolute nonsense garbage. I mean, I've seen some where people just don't use the program right and they submit a bug for it. Um, it's not uncommon, but it's not like they're incentivized to. They're not getting a financial reward out of submitting those bugs, and instead they're just sort of making their work life better. Anyways, I don't know. Just a little weird. We have different. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts there? Because I was just trying to think like why is it different?
Why is it different? I think it's the financial incentive that's dropped on top of that. I mean, Daniel does talk about that. He does talk about the security researcher from their point of view. It might not be it's not a malicious thing, right? They think that AI is actually generating something and has found something, And so they may just not understand, or they may not understand at the level that they actually can go in and validate that the vulnerability exists. And so they think that they're doing the open source community a favor by reporting this because it was identified by the generative AI. KYC is know your customer. And that is that's a good point that feeds into reputation, right? If I report to the bug bounty platform that all I'm getting from a specific researcher is AI slop, over time, their reputation should suffer, or they may get kicked off the platform because they're not submitting valid bugs, if that's realistically what's happening. So that will be a direction that it goes, but it's always that like fine line of how much time do you want to spend? How much incentive do you want to give? The fact that there are huge payouts for critical vulnerabilities in a lot of platforms or a lot of bug bounty programs means it's incentivized to actually submit and try and find something in an easy manner using LLMs that is only going to increase the amount of AI slop over time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's only going to increase. But also it's like, what's the difference too here? The difference pre and post. I guess it's just like you have an entity that can act as your persona, right? That's the difference. Like we still had tools that could produce plenty of crappy results. People use them all the time. I saw plenty of submissions for crap tools. It doesn't matter if it was AI or something else. But I think the one difference here is that you have a bot persona that can act as you in mass and leverage the same tools that you as a human being can do with agentic tooling, it taking autonomous actions. So it does exponentially change, or exponentially, it impacts exponentially the amount of submissions and follow up on those submissions that you could do, because like you could, you could, I guess, theoretically never sleep and submit to 12 different or 120 different platforms, we'll say, and try to follow up on those every single day. It'd be pretty hard, right? A little bit easier to just have like a chatbot persona act like you. And so. And speaking of chatbot,
yeah,
I don't know if you wanted to talk about the other thing too.
Yeah, we do. We want to talk about McDonald's. Yes, I was going to reference back to Crossbow or Expo, whatever it is, too, right? Like because they're obviously using AI, but they're like they've
orchestrated it.
They've orchestrated it, right? So it's you're still getting AI slop. It just happens to be good AI slop that's validated through some orchestration process and with humans in the loop to make sure that it's valid. And that may be the way that we move forward. Is you'll see more teams like Expo building an actual orchestration framework around the LLM that is submitting those bugs, as opposed to just, hey, I went into the source code and ChatGPT found something because I told it to find something.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Orchestration is you can have an engine for anything, but it's how you build around that engine that matters. And that's the real truth about whether you're going to get good results or not. And they were able to orchestrate and go after low hanging fruit in mass that, these systems can do more than low hanging fruit. But I know that there was like a lot of, or at least I've heard statistically, there was a lot of sort of cruft that they uncovered, but it's not like it was useless, bugs. It was just stuff that kind of, should have been found before, but we didn't have the tooling to do it. And also like they can, again, you talk about the efficiency and scalability of taking human knowledge and, going from one person to now 30 people essentially. So, you can hit a lot of targets pretty quickly. So they did a good job of showing and I selfishly, it's been really good for me in conversations because I've actually, you know what? I should say this. Like I've had a couple of sales conversations where people are like, I was skeptical and then I saw what Crossbow was doing. And they always say Crossbow in case you're curious, because I didn't know what it's called either.
Yeah,
they always say Crossbow, fine. So I'm going to guess that's what it is. But yeah, I'm thankful to them for that, actually, believe it or not.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense, right? Like the way that they're utilizing it, they're utilizing LLMs is it's smart, right? Like, let's be honest. I mean, Stefan and I talked about it a little bit a few weeks ago. Yeah, and it works. But that's the same thing that we're seeing on our side. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, do you think it would have found this though? Like the chatbot recruitment platform, McDonald's exposed 64 million job applications.
Well, I know the IDOR would, but I don't know about the test credentials because unless that's hard coded in the source, I don't remember how they found the test credentials. But yeah, that's basically what they did. If I'm remembering correctly, they found test credentials to the Paradox.ai chat like administrative interface that was powering the applicant website. So this is, by the way, this is just all good old fashioned AppSec vulnerabilities. I should just straight away say that. Like this is in an AI system, but it's good old fashioned AppSec. So which I am so refreshed to talk about. So um uh so yeah. So anyways, test credentials found, logged in the admin interface. There is a there was they found an endpoint, authenticated endpoint that had it was susceptible to insecure direct object reference, broken object level access, whatever you want to call it, your IDORs, your bolas. That allowed for enumerating different applicants. I think they actually only stole one applicant's details. I could be wrong. I don't remember actually. I think it was pretty limited in nature. But it was Sam Curry and Ian Carroll, I believe, that were the researchers. And yeah, I don't know anything. What are your thoughts on this one? What did you get from this article or from this breakdown?
So I mean, it's good research. It's obviously, IDOR plus like default credentials. You wouldn't be shocked, but maybe listeners would be shocked at the number of times that I find these weaknesses in massive platforms with large customers. So like McDonald's, that they roll something out. There's upgrades that happen to the underlying platform. So in this case, it was Paradox.ai that accidentally pushes out test credentials from the staging instance into production, or default credentials that exist and they don't disable the platform login on production or in staging. And as long as you can figure out what that URL is to access that dashboard, you can log in with default credentials, right? This is very, very traditional, like you said, application security. The flaws that exist here are things that I definitely see and I've seen within the last 6 months for large companies, because of the configurations, right? Like this is, I mean, I hate to always go back to the course, but we talk about security configurations and identifying misconfigurations in applications. And this is one of the highest risk, or I mean, the highest risk vulnerabilities that can exist, because the developers themselves, what they've customized is on top of a platform. If you have access to the platform, you have access to the whole customization, the whole database, and can dump. And like in the case here, you can dump everybody's data that exists in that platform if you have access to the developer tools.
Yeah.
So I'm not shocked, right? Like when this came across, I was like, yep, IDOR is still a thing. We see it all the time. And with test credentials,
That's probably one of the most
yeah,
like prevalent vulnerabilities that I hear about. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, Justin and I at Redpoint, we talk about it all the time. Like we are paid to find IDOR. That's basically bread and butter for each assessment that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's
yeah.
yeah, that is the pain point I hear consistently from every customer I talk to. Why are you here? Well, we need to find IDOR. Okay. Like what's been going, and it's always like it's not simple IDOR. It's not the stuff you see in I mean, I'm sure that still exists too, like the kind of vanilla versions that you see in like purposefully vulnerable web apps. But most often, or more likely, it's a very, again, specific to them. You have to understand their authorization architecture and exactly what you would have to do anti-pattern wise, or maybe just not following any pattern in order to, like that's an easier one, just not following any pattern. But like the sort of ones I'm thinking about is you and I know of a company we can't say, but you and I both have worked on the source code of that company. Mine's from a product side, and yours is from a consulting side. But we both have looked in their code, looked at their code with manual eyes, right, with good old fashioned eyeballs, and looked through their uh, API. I won't even say what kind of API technology. I don't want to get hyper specific here, but their API has like 6 different ways of performing authorization, right? And it's very like hard to know what is the right pattern. It's kind of spread out throughout the code base. It's not even like there's like one, and depending on the directory structure might influence like what considerations go along with that authorization. And so it gets into not only how are we using those authorization patterns, are we using them at the right time? And then also on top of all of that, you know, do we have any mismatches in expectations? So like, for instance, yeah, you're an admin of a team, but are you an admin of the resource that team is going to, or like the resource that's associated with whatever that that record is outside of the team that you're interacting with. So just because you're the team the admin of that team, does that mean you should be able to, I don't know, administer, like you were saying, like maybe the carrier ID of another team, for instance? So you also have to make sure that the records being interacted with are scoped using one of those authorization mechanisms correctly. That requires a crap load of context. It is the reason that like tooling hasn't previously until the last couple of years been able to even remotely get near touching that kind of an issue. But it is the reason I think that it also exists in applications so much, not the tooling aspect, but just the complexity, how hard it is to uncover that. And then like, I guess we could say that if you don't have tooling that can proactively check for that, if you don't have a Seth constantly able, like internally, right, to, because like you may have good, like really great team members, but you may not have a lot of them. And so those PRs are flying across. So maybe you get to them, maybe you don't. It depends on how like your team is set up, how much code you can get to in a day, even how like, well, I think your release processes, or just in general, like your engineering teams can surface like meaningful changes like that. But inevitably things are going to slip through the cracks, whether you got the best AppSec team or the best tooling. I feel like that's just an easy one to have, IDOR just kind of like falling into your code base. I don't know.
Yeah, it is, right? And I mean, to GPSAC's point, right? Like it's usually a sign of weak architecture or architecture follow through, right? Like it's maturity problem. But it's also a maturity problem from a code perspective, and how mature the organization was when they implemented that authorization model in the first place. So a startup is very focused on delivering their first proof of concept, delivering for their first customer. And so authorization may be a very, very basic function, or maybe simple to solve when you've got a single monolith, a single customer. And the more that you start to add on, it's hard to plan for a future when you don't know what the future state looks like. And to the point of the customer that you're talking about, they grew very fast. They grew very quickly. They had multiple teams working on the platform, working on different avenues to actually implement these authorization flows. Yeah, those edge cases are going to exist. The context is going to be very difficult to suss out, and there are going to be flaws within those little edge cases across the board. And to be fair to the industry, yes, like we see things like McDonald's where, hey, it's very easy. It's a single number. you can increment or decrement to see somebody else's data. That's been around for a long time. Now, the more difficult problem is the one that you're dealing with there, when you do have the edge cases and when you do depend on another system to do authorization for you. What happens when that fails, or the ID is different, or you provided a parameter that authorization pattern 1 expects but 2 does not, right? Like those sorts of fine lines is where we have started to live from an IDOR perspective. It's fairly easy to do a test where you change an ID parameter. It's a lot more difficult to understand and have the context of everything that goes into authorization, and then find that one ID or that one edge case. I keep saying edge case, but the one edge case where you can sneak something through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So my other question then, Ken, why is this news?
Well, because it's McDonald's, because it's, applicants, and
this was not anything revolutionary, right? Like,
no.
It was not.
It's realistically, it is a nothing burger, but it's still like, in the sense of like the impact and whatnot, but it's still interesting, right? It's still, I think for me, it's also interesting just because like fashion AppSec, and I don't know. I didn't care about the AI part about it at all. I was just more interested in like, there's another system connected to your hiring system that had default credentials exposed, had other software vulnerabilities inside of it, and that really led to the real exploit. It's nothing. There's nothing to me that stands out revolutionary about any of it. It's just, I don't know. It's fun. I will say it's fun to talk about. I do. By the way, I do have to like. Sorry. I was supposed to stop this 10 minutes ago. I am late for a meeting. So I do have to like start to wrap it up, and I apologize. I'm getting pings and whatnot. And I totally messed up the timing on this. I apologize. That's me.
No worries. Yeah. Like, and Robert's asking about the McDonald's India hack. We should. No,
I haven't even seen that. Hold on. I do want to look. Hold on. India hack. Now I'm curious though. Oh, I can't. Bugs in a major McDonald's India delivery system expose sensitive customer data. You know what else I saw about this? Has nothing to do with AppSec. I don't know if I don't forget the name of the bridge. It's like, I don't know. Actually, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but there's a bridge in India that they made a Z shape, and it has 90-degree angles on the bridge, and it's like a disaster. You should Google like Indian Z bridge disaster or something like that. But yeah, it's like right angles. I've never seen anything like it. Sorry. Anyways.
Okay. So I think he's talking, and Robert, if you're, is this the delivery one that you're talking about, right? What was that?
That was back in December, I think.
That was December. Yeah.
No, I didn't. So
that's could be exploited to order anything off the menu for 1 cent, right? That's probably it.
I've never seen billing take user supplied input to make the decision on how much to charge. Never seen that before. That's
Yeah. I'll throw it up there if you want to look at it, and we can keep talking about it in Slack. So join us there so can get to his meeting, because he has more important things, quote unquote, than the podcast. Yeah.
Well, I gotta sell this product that I made. So it's not enough to build it. You got to sell it too.
Yeah. We'll have to go through and read it. Right. Maybe we'll talk about it next week as well, but at the very least, Robert will talk about it in Slack also. Appreciate everyone joining today. Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. And please, if you're considering secure code review, this week is the week to get that out. So sign up if you can. Yeah. Otherwise, we will see everybody online and in person in Vegas here in a few weeks. Enjoy your week, and we'll talk soon.
All right.
Thanks all.